Joe Biden and Donald Trump have beaten the offside trap of life. They've outlived half of the people, men who were born in their year. But every 7 years, your chance of your mortality doubles. So half the 81-year-olds in 7 years' time will have died. Well, that's almost the length of a presidency. And so there's the risk of him getting ill or dying, and that needs to be considered.
Well, this New York Times reports that Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden, the First Lady, has encouraged him to continue. But what's the reality of doing a very demanding job in your 80s? And what happens to your mental and physical faculties when you reach that stage of your life? Well, Dr. David Jarrett is a consultant geriatrician. David, thank you for joining us this morning. I wouldn't dream of asking you to diagnose anybody simply from what you've seen on television, of course, but you do know, and you're an expert in terms of what happens at that stage of life. But nonetheless, we have Donald Trump, who is 78, Joe Biden, who is 81, and clearly with Joe Biden, there are signs, even to the man or woman on the street, that there is some form of problem there. There is cognitive decline in some way.
A lot of things happen to us as we get older. And unfortunately, not many things get better physiologically or psychologically as we age. Now, we may want to live forever, but I'm afraid our body is hardwired to decline and deteriorate in many ways. And there are a certain number of facts associated with being Joe Biden or even Donald Trump's age. By the time you get to early 70s, 3% of us will have a dementing illness, 10% in the 80s, early 80s, and 30% in the early 90s. And by the time we get to 90, 100% of us on a brain scan will have what's called microangiopathy, so evidence of narrowed blood vessels and less blood going to the brain. Now, our mental capacities, some of them improve a bit as we get older, some of them deteriorate. Our numeric skills deteriorate from our 20s. Inductive reasoning, ability to make general conclusions from data starts to deteriorate. Spatial orientation deteriorates, so we're not quite so nimble getting around and knowing where things are. Our perceptual speed deteriorates. That's the ability to think quickly and recall things. And if you've ever watched University Challenge, when you see the young contestants, they're razor sharp and very quick at retrieving information. When they have the past champions in their 50s and 60s, it's sort of painfully slow. Some things improve with age. Sometimes our procedural skills, things that we've learned all over throughout our life, cooking skills may get better. Verbal skills may sometimes improve. We're better at dealing with complex problems and emotional processing. So, there's a family crisis, the oldest person in the family may be able to see it clearer than the younger people. We're less anxious as we get older, and curiously, we're probably more happy. But we do have that sort of a difficulty with very, very complex stuff. And physically, by the time you get to your 80s, only about 10% of us will not have any chronic medical conditions.
Yes.
And about maybe by the time you're 80, the average will be about 4 chronic medical conditions: blood pressure, arthritis,
Sure.
diabetes. So that's the facts about getting older.
From a geriatrician's perspective, and I wonder societally as well, I worked as a journalist in the United States for a while, and my impression, and I wonder what you think as a consultant geriatrician, is that attitudes to age in the United States are just a little bit different to how they are here in the United Kingdom. Gordon Brown, for example, the former Prime Minister, he's 73 years old. He has a quip that he's made a few times where people said, would you come back into British politics? And he says, I'm too old for British politics and I'm too young for American politics. I wonder if we're moving from democracy to a gerocracy, essentially.
Well, it's something that I had some concerns about. A lot of the money and power are with the elderly. We're all rattling around great big houses worth vast amounts of money, while younger people with families are struggling in one-bedroom flats. This is, a bureaucracy. And I suspect in North America, or certainly in America, not necessarily Canada, money does buy power and influence in politics, and you need a huge amount of money to back it up. But we have to have a debate in society. We don't allow commercial pilots to fly over the age of 65. There's no professional footballers in their 60s. It's perfectly okay to have Paul McCartney playing Glastonbury at the age of 80, because that's entertainment. He doesn't have his finger on any.
Should there be a political cutoff? Do you think is there a time
Sorry?
where should there be a political cutoff? I mean, there are
Well, I
questions about
wonder whether we need some sort of upper age limit for for major jobs.
But you will know. Sorry to interrupt you, David. But you will know far better than most people as a consultant geriatrician. You will know that, and we can see in the difference between Trump and Biden. I mean, you may hate Trump and massively disagree with him. You may think he's a genius. I don't know. But the point is that he is a very different 78-year-old. He's a very different old person than Joe Biden is an old person. And there will be people who are, well into their 80s, even in their 90s perhaps, who are, sharp as a tack. And surely some sort of age limit is in some way arbitrary.
Well, your biological age is not the important thing. It's your physiological and maybe your cognitive age, which is the most important thing. But I just feel there's something that we need to seriously think about when you have people who are not representative of younger people wielding a great deal of political power. Some people look brilliant, but when the problem with aging is that you can look wonderful physiologically, but as soon as your body is challenged, then the age may well certainly become apparent. And one wonders about older politicians, and they may have a great deal of wisdom, but dealing with just the physical demands of being a prime minister or a president or other major job might just be too much for them. The other thing that I think we need to look at is that the biological facts about what's going to happen over, let's say, the course of a parliament
or a presidency.
Yeah, and Joe Biden and Donald Trump have beaten the offside trap of life. They've outlived half of the men who were born in their year. But every 7 years, your chance of your mortality doubles. So half the 81-year-olds in 7 years' time will have died. Well, that's almost the length of a presidency, and so there's the risk of him getting ill or dying, and that needs to be considered. And I think that's a major factor.
There's lots certainly for the Democrats to consider at the moment, on the American people as well. Dr. David Jarrett, thank you very much indeed. He's a consultant geriatrician. Very, very interesting.
Really interesting. And I just wonder, in light of what we've heard there from someone who is an expert in age, that's by its very nature, should there be an age limit imposed on politicians in certain big offices, big jobs?
But it can mean different things at different times.
But I just wonder if we should have it. Really interested to get your thoughts on this.